This meeting is being recorded. I'm Cynthia Good. I'm so happy to see you all here for the Pink Power Alliance conversation on what organizations are doing about the entrenched bias, gender and race bias that exists in companies across the country. That's my sidekick, Zuni, barking at the birds. But really happy to see you all here today. In the past year, after the unrest that we've seen, civil unrest, we've seen a lot of increased pressure on organizations to actually change and become more diverse, more pressure than ever. Of course, the murder of George Floyd took place 1 year ago this week. Great time to have this conversation. We want to see how the changes are taking place, and more specifically, what the women who are part of this program, the Pink Power Alliance members, can do to tap into these new opportunities and to be part of the solution and see the difference in your own career. According to some really interesting data put out, new data by Accenture, it shows that employees want more diversity and inclusion in their organizations. In fact, 77% of the women say an inclusive culture is vital to their ability to advance and thrive. So we know how important this is. So the question is, how is this actually translating into the culture in these organizations, and what can we do about it? Our experts today know the answer. We have some amazing thought leaders part of this program today. I want you to first meet Chloe Barzey. She's a managing director of the Atlanta office of Accenture. She also oversees the vision and operations for the company across all of Georgia, Tennessee, and Alabama. Hi, Chloe, how are you?
Hello, and thank you for welcoming me. I'm excited to be here with all of you. I would say that Accenture is very focused on setting concrete, visible, and tangible goals and achieving them. So we did that for women, for our representation in the workforce, the number of women, and also for the number of women leaders. And then with all that happened with George Floyd, we also set tangible goals around representation of overall people of color in the workforce. And that includes African Americans / Black people and Latinx people. And so again, just as we did for women, it's increasing the number in our workforce as well as the number of leaders, because we know both of those matter. And right. We set very tangible goals, and they're public, and then we also report on those. And so that helps us stay true to the tangible and concrete goals that we set.
Right. Well, we're going to talk more about this as we go along, because I'm really interested in how do you make sure that happens? How do you put teeth into that? I know in our recent event that we had in March, Susan Johnson, Chief Marketing Officer of Prudential, told our audience of 3,800 women globally that the way that Prudential is doing it is that in 2018, they began implementing impact on executives and tying their compensation to meeting those diversity goals. So that's like real teeth. So we want to know what Accenture is doing about that and how other organizations are responding to. Quick question though for you now, Chloe, how are you dealing with all this on a personal level? How is this landing on you personally in your day-to-day life within the organization and as a woman?
So personally, of course, I was saddened by the events that happened, but I'm also encouraged. I'm encouraged because so many people have joined in this fight for equity, and in the conversation around making a tangible difference. It's unfortunate that so much hate and bigotry had to be the catalyst to get us to join together. But there are so many corporations that are joining together, not only to support their people, but to support the communities. And we have examples of where we are joining together with other corporations to make a tangible impact in the communities that we serve. And so I'm encouraged. We've made a lot more advances in the last year than I've seen in a long time, perhaps in my lifetime.
Wow.
And I don't mean with Accenture, but in the broader business community. And so I'm excited about that, and also very excited about what Accenture's been doing.
I love hearing that. Thank you so much, Chloe. I want to introduce everyone to our next guest. And, you know, the thing is that for a lot of these companies, if they are not really focusing on diversity and showing the impact, they may be in legal trouble. And so our next guest has a front row to some of that. Her name is Emily Borna. She's a longtime attorney, a principal at Jackson and Lewis. She specializes in labor and employment law. She works with a lot of companies that are dealing with this. And Emily, tell everybody how you are doing, because I feel like you've kind of been hit by the fire hose lately since there's so much of a focus on this.
Thanks, Cynthia. Well, first, I'm delighted to be included in this distinguished group of panelists for this important discussion. And yes, I definitely have some job security in recent months, given not just months, but you know, the catalyst movements that have been occurring, really going back to the Me Too movement, and you know, in the last year, the Black Lives Matter protest and movement, and what it's done for the companies that we provide advice and counsel to. And, you know, I do a lot of advice and counsel. I also do litigation. We're a firm with offices all over the country. And, you know, whether it's in Minneapolis, where the terrible George Floyd tragedy occurred, or, you know, in New York City, where there's been increasing attacks on Asian Americans, you know, all over the board, we are seeing this incredible unrest, and it's created a growing expectation of companies to do more than just, you know, acknowledge it, but to take some action, to walk the talk, and to put your money where your mouth is, if you will. And what the way that's translated for myself and my colleagues on the front line of this issue is to establish at our firm a devoted practice group that does nothing but diversity and inclusion strategies for companies, counseling. Really, we try to be proactive. We've had a huge demand for trainings on this issue. We've been doing a lot of that. And also just helping the leadership of company develop strategies and initiatives to implement action, to recognize, you know, that they're doing more than just paying lip service to this very important issue and trend. And I'll tell you also, as a litigator, I'm seeing a huge impact in the way that our cases are being addressed.
What do you mean by that, Emily?
Well, you know, we handle everything from race discrimination to sexual harassment claims, really any kind of workplace law issue. But, you know, I handled the mediation of a race discrimination claim that started in another state out west back in 2016. And due to a number of factors, you know, including the pandemic, it really got stalled for a long time. And there were some really egregious facts in the matter. But the valuation of that case and the company's interest in resolving it at an early stage has been dramatically impacted by what's going on right now, because the prospect of trying a case involving some offensive racial slurs, for example, in this environment is just a non-starter.
Okay, cool. Well, we're going to come back to you in a little bit when we get a little deeper into this, but I want to go ahead and move on and introduce our next guest. Her name is Tracy Reznik, and she is on the consulting side, focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion. She's a director with Jabian Consulting. That's a technology, strategy, and management company. How are you doing, Tracy? Are you pretty busy these days?
We are very busy these days. Thank you, Cynthia, for the introduction. I'm glad to be here.
Good. Okay. Well, thank you for just, you know, saying hi to everybody, and we're going to dive into this topic a little bit deeper, but we really want to get to all of you who are watching. In a little while after the breakout session, we're going to open the mics. We want to hear your voice. We want to know your questions. We want our speakers to address and answer your questions. If you have comments or thoughts or introduce yourself, please be very outspoken on the chat. Part of the development skill that we're focusing on during these conferences is really to encourage everybody to speak up. So we want to take a quick poll to see where everybody is, including our experts. So we want to ask you this question. Lisa Herman with pink is going to pop the first question on the screen so everybody can see it. Since I'm a host, I may not be able to see it. So maybe Adele, if you could shout out the results to these polls so I know what the results are and I can keep track of that. The first question regarding these conversations on race and gender, we want to know, are you having more of these conversations around race and gender these days? Each of you who are participating, are you having more of these sorts of conversations? It's a yes or no question, super easy, super quick, and then we'll be able to see the results. And Adele, if you want to unmute yourself, if you're able to, and then tell us what the results are as soon as Lisa pops them on the screen.
Adele, can you see them?
Nope.
No?
Nope.
Okay, well, I can see them. The results are that 97% of you say that you are having more conversations around race and gender. Only 3% said no.
Okay, great. Thanks, Lisa. And let's go ahead and jump to the next question. Has your comfort level changed regarding this? Are you more comfortable? Are you less comfortable? Or is there no change? And then Lisa, you can see it, so just jump in with those
Sure.
results.
Give it one more second. Okay, the results are in. 54% are more comfortable having these conversations. 31%, nothing's changed for them. And 15% are actually less comfortable.
All right, well, that's really, really interesting data to me. We've got a great crowd. We've got more than 40 women leaders and influencers and Pink Power Alliance members who are all emerging women leaders and women leaders. And I loved Chloe, what do you, I guess we're not really surprised that 97% are having more of these conversations, but are you surprised, Chloe, that 15% are as comfortable today as they were before? How much was it, Lisa? 31% are less comfortable? Did I get that backwards?
Yes, no, that's right.
31% are less comfortable? Is that the statistic?
Oh, I'm sorry.
15%.
33%, no, only 18% are less comfortable. I would say the majority are more comfortable or nothing has changed for them.
Okay, so 18% are less comfortable. I guess that stat changed briefly. The bulk are more comfortable. That's great. What have you got for no change, Lisa, at all now?
15%.
15% no change.
Oh, I'm sorry, 30% have not changed at all.
30%. So, Chloe, what do you make of this data?
Oh, there it is. I see the poll here. So I am glad to see that 52% of the people are more comfortable, because that's what we're doing. We're encouraging more of the open dialogue. We've had a lot of town hall conversations as a result of what's been going on in our offices nationally and globally, and also, in small groups. And what I found is that sometimes these conversations happen better in smaller groups, but my advice is to have them one-on-one, because as we get to know people better, we can get to understand people better, and that helps eliminate some of that bias.
Great, I love that. Emily and Tracy, anything to add to that?
Sure. I'm actually surprised that the number of those who are less comfortable was so low. I think the conversations that I've been seeing and been encouraging with my clients and with our own company is to talk real. And those real conversations are uncomfortable. And if we're more uncomfortable now than we used to be, I think we're closer to getting to the root of what we need to be talking about.
So being out of your comfort zone in this case is really good, right?
I think so.
And Emily, some of the resources Emily sent reiterate that. Lisa, you want to pop that on the screen? She specifically sent us a TED video, and we'll be sharing all the amazing resources our speakers have provided in our recap. There was a great TED video that I want you all to check out later. She talks about, it's Borna Myers. She talks about leaning into this, walk boldly toward these conversations, right, Emily?
Absolutely. I mean, I agree with Tracy's thought that the fact that people are acknowledging the discomfort means that they're having more dialogue. You know, as Chloe said, it's terrific that we're having town hall meetings, and a lot of companies are doing that. And even more with respect to interest groups, whether it's a women's interest group or an African American interest group or an Asian American or Latinx interest group, but getting down to those conversations, awareness is the first part of the equation. And so I do think with that comes some discomfort, but that's not a reason to avoid it. It's just a demonstration of the progress.
Okay, so everyone on this call is, you know, we want to provide the skills, right? Leadership skills, so we all can rise up and move up and run, you know, divisions and organizations, because this is the group. So we want everybody to be more comfortable having these conversations. So Emily's got a fantastic scenario. She's going to walk us through the scenario. We're going to move everybody into a really brief breakout session. And so she's going to set it up. I'm going to remind you about the breakout session, and then you'll see it on your screen. I think Lisa's figured out a way, I hope, to get this on the screen for you. Emily, you want to walk us through this real quick? Just
sure,
because I want to keep us on time.
Sure. And so this scenario concerns what might be a typical exchange in the workplace. You know, Anthony, an African-American male who's just been hired as the company's controller, brings his son, who's just gotten out of school, to the office with them one day as everybody's returning to work. And a coworker, Elizabeth, comes out of her office to meet Anthony's son, Harrison, and she sees that he's wearing some new sneakers. She asks him if he has a huge sneaker collection, and she asks him whether he plays basketball, and tells him that she's a huge fan of Drake. And Harrison appears pretty uncomfortable with this discussion, and eventually, you know, tells Elizabeth that he's a little offended by it later. The question is, and I think what's good for discussion is, does he have a right to be offended? You know, Elizabeth's response is, oh man, I love kids. I was just trying to relate to your son based on my knowledge of what young African-American boys typically are interested in. She adds that her sister's married to an African-American man and her nephews are biracial, and she didn't intend to discriminate. That would never be something she would do. And the question that I think is helpful for a breakout session is, did Elizabeth do anything wrong? Whether, you know, legally, ethically, what have you.
All right, thank you, Emily, for setting that up. We want to move everybody into breakout groups. There is no wrong answer to this. It's just a great opportunity to have a dialogue. If you would, we have some of our featured coaches that support these efforts that will be the facilitator. So just go ahead and introduce yourself. And I just want to question you guys real quick. When you get into your breakout question, we want to do something kind of crazy when you kick it off. If you could introduce yourself and then show everybody, just among us, what you're wearing below your Zoom outfit. These are shorts. Okay, so we want to know, just it stays here. Lisa is going to turn off the recording. So this part of the conversation is not going to be recorded. Okay, so welcome back, everybody, from the breakout session. The last person who commented, I didn't catch your name, but I thought that was a great point. You asked, what was the race of the person who was making the assumptions? Emily, does that matter? And give us some insight on what's the right answer to this, Emily, just real briefly.
Well, the right answer is that it's not that Elizabeth did anything unlawful per se, but, you know, has made a bunch of assumptions here, and Anthony's spoken up to explain why that's offensive to him. Not that she came from this to this discussion with bad intentions, but just to interrupt some of those stereotypes that she had in her mind. And as one participant said, maybe rethink and look at things in a more open-minded fashion. And I love the question that when we rejoined that was going on, the discussion, you know, what race is Elizabeth? Well, right. We probably made some assumptions about that. That's intentionally left unsaid, you know, I think the assumption is that she's Caucasian, she's not African American, you know, but we don't know. We don't know. And does that make a difference in the content of the dialogue that's going on? It's an open-ended question.
Okay, well, I'd love to hear from some of the other facilitators or others in the different groups. Adele, what did your group say? And what was the wardrobe situation in your group? Most important.
Actually, we just started talking. We just jumped right into the topic.
Okay,
and
okay.
you
So,
know,
well, what are you wearing then?
Oh, I got jeans on.
Okay. Yeah, jeans, that was pretty popular. But anyway,
Yeah.
back to the topic at hand.
Yeah, and I think there's so much to be explored, to be said. It's not something that can be compacted in there's a lot to be said, but I feel like we were open to seeing how this can happen. There's no right or wrong. I think the group felt that people are entitled to feel however they feel. I mean, there's not like a right or wrong feeling. It's honestly where someone is, and it's not a matter of trying to find the right answer. It's more seeing things from a wider perspective. I know for me, I mean, I love these conversations because I have them every day with some of my corporate clients, and I can just love the juiciness that's starting to happen, the exploration that it's not just a personal thing all the time. So that was something that our group was discovering or discussing.
You know, I'd love to just ask a quick question. This is Josephine Good. She is my sister-in-law, and I just had the opportunity to meet her in person a few days ago. She spent her entire life in China. A young professional woman just came to the United States 2 weeks ago. This stuff is surprising to you, right, Josephine? Tell us why.
Actually, when I heard about the question, in my mind, I did not follow the question. I asked myself, why this conversation related to races? You know, why this connect together? Because I think that's just one person to another person's conversation. Because in China, we don't have a, you know, we all the same, and all the people they talk that's just a question from person to person. So
yeah, that's really interesting. The race issue isn't a big issue because everybody's Chinese, she said, and she also has shared with me that her bosses have been women, and her bosses have reported to other women. So it's going to be really interesting to follow her along in her career here in the United States. So Annette, what happened in your group? I always loved hearing Annette, if she's still on the call. There you are, because her insights are always.
So I think consistent what was said before is, well, both parties made assumptions. So both parties, both Elizabeth and Anthony. So, and we don't think anyone did anything wrong. And both had good intentions. And Elizabeth was trying to connect based on what her background was.
Right.
And Anthony didn't really appear to know her very well. So, I mean, and I also think the scenario was honestly a little vague. Like, it was really hard to assess it because there wasn't a lot of information. But I think it was all assumption based.
Right. Okay.
And
Thanks.
we were wearing shorts and yoga pants.
Shorts and yoga pants. Yeah, same. Yeah. Let's see. Genevieve, did you want to jump in there real quick? And then let's go to Shelley. And then I really want to know if you have questions for our experts, a little bit of discussion about what some of the other companies are doing that's really innovative.
Sure. We had a really good, quick conversation. We could have talked forever. And Chloe was really spot on when she said it would take small steps and small groups. At first, she felt that was the best way, and we agreed. And I think that was really thoughtful. Instead of making bold declarations, you know, to your team members, to break up into small groups. And I thought that was you know.
Okay, great. Thanks for that input, Shelley. Any thoughts from your end?
Yes, I have on jeans today. We had one person in the office, so she's dressed, and then we had one member of our group who had her maternity clothes on.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Right.
But what we agreed upon is that the intent was not bad, but unfortunately, you don't get to choose how a person receives your message, and if they are offended, then you have to deal with it in that regard. We don't get to choose how we assume people should be offended. And essentially, she had, her sister was married to a Black guy. And so I think that assumption is what gave her the feeling that she could say that. But what I wanted to add is I liked that this guy who is a new employee, actually, he is setting the tone so that their future relationship can move better together, right?
Yeah, I mean,
letting her know right off.
Yeah, I think, Shelley, that is so key and so important to say something about it. I think, people are really listening. And I think, it sounds like in the scenario that Emily provided that it was done in a way that was not caustic or offensive, but the importance of saying something. Chloe, what do you think? And how is all this landing on you from your perspective in terms of, your focus through Accenture on this diversity topic?
First of all, I have an 11-year-old son, so I could relate to the scenario. But to me, in the scenario, the child was the one that was offended and then said something to the dad. And so what I would say is that, again, it's back to what Genevieve said. I mean, we just have to take the time, one, to listen to each other and learn about each other so that we can eliminate some of these biases. And the other thing that we do at Accenture, and we really make sure that people understand that, is we have to give each other grace. And now is the time to do it. Everyone is under a lot of stress, and we don't know what particular stress someone is dealing with. And so on both sides, and that was a point that was made in our small group, the grace has to happen on both sides. So don't jump to offense, and be careful what you say, but on both sides, we have to come together and give each other grace so that we can, develop and strengthen our relationships.
Beautifully said. All right, well, what are we seeing in terms of, Tracy, real quick, and Emily, and then Chloe, what are you seeing in terms of what companies are doing really to advance diversity, to actually start walking the walk? Emily?
Sure.
Oh, go ahead, Tracy, you go first, because we haven't heard from you in a bit.
Okay. So companies are now acknowledging that biases exist, and they're finally doing something about it. I wouldn't say that the companies we're working with right now are at the innovative stage of dealing with diversity, equity, and inclusion.
What do you mean by that?
I think there's a lot to do with the fundamentals. I think they are meeting people where they are. I think they are putting the infrastructure in place and the culture in place to be able to have these conversations and to be able to remove the inherent bias that as humans we all bring to the table. So what I do see companies doing that I find absolutely necessary is elevating the role of a chief diversity officer. So there have been countless job postings over the past 6 to 9 months for this role, more than I've seen in the 10, 20 years prior that I've been in the people line of work. So companies are investing in it, and they are giving this role a seat at the table. And this shouldn't necessarily be an HR function. It needs to be every function. It needs to report directly to a CEO.
Great. And did anybody have anything else to mention? I know she talked about the importance of direct report. We talked about the importance of investment. Any other innovative, wild things that companies are tying executive compensation?
So Cynthia, this is Annette. I raised my hand. I'm gonna take it down now. So when Tracy said, I forget exactly what she said. I haven't had enough coffee today, but she said something, and then she said, but they're not really innovative yet. And you said, what does that mean?
Yeah.
So I have a question for Tracy. What would innovation look like in the DE&I space?
Great question. I think it's taking it from really talking about what needs to happen, because that's where a lot of the conversations are now, especially from a measurement and a report perspective. And it's bringing that forward and doing more about it, incorporating and embedding DE&I into every single business decision, every single policy. The metrics of it are so important, tie it to comp, tie it to performance, both internal and external. I saw a dashboard yesterday that Popeyes just released. They are now reporting metrics, demographic metrics across their customer base who's visiting their stores, eating at Popeyes, but also to their advertising. Who is in their advertising? What demographics? Who is then producing those ads? And there's a disconnect. And I give props to them. And I do think it's innovative for them to collect the metrics to begin with, because that is innovative, and to publish it because it's holding themselves accountable to do something about it.
Yeah, and I did, one of our featured speakers had sent some data over to Pink, and I think it said only like just over 3% of the companies have been actually reporting this to the EEOC. So there is a question of transparency still, and most of the organizations that didn't look so great when they shared it. But it seems to me that we're all suffering from the same thing, which was demonstrated in the breakout sessions, which is this is uncharted territory. And so there's a reluctance to dive in because we're going to make some mistakes, right, Chloe? I think it goes back to what she says, Chloe said about giving ourselves grace. And then I'd love Emily to weigh in. Emily, let's just go ahead and go.
Yeah. Sure. I was on mute before. I'm sorry. So, look, there is a growing expectation, and we are going through a really unprecedented time socially in many, many respects. And as our diversity is increasing, there's projections that by 2044, minorities are going to be the majority, which, is sort of an interesting spin on the whole concept, if you will. But the reality is the workforce is increasingly diverse, and diversity is a fact, but equity and inclusion is really the goal. And so, success in our business environment today requires a devoted strategy, which I think is one of the first steps, awareness, which is a big step, and then, some action that's going to vary from organization to organization about how to turn what could be a potential legal risk, which is, one of my focuses, into a competitive advantage in our marketplace today. And, whether that's mentoring, whether that's trainings, interest groups, I can tell you for businesses, even like our law firm, when we get a request for proposal, we have to address what we're doing with respect to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And, hiring initiatives, all of those things, those are some of the tangible actions that we're seeing. And it starts at the top.
Right, great. Thank you. I'd love to jump now to knowing all this. Chloe, I want to go back to you. What the women who are watching, who I view as obviously women influencers and emerging leaders, how can we tap into this information and be part of the solution? Because I want to see every woman on this call move into her dream role, including, Christine and Josephine. What can we do to be part of the solution within the organization?
There's so many things that we can do to be part of the solution. So I'll just start by saying just three quick things. Accenture has set an inclusion and diversity strategy. We made it very clear. And then we have, we set 3 tangible goals. And then there are lots of things we're doing as a result of that. One is really to increase the leadership and increase the population, because when you have more diverse and inclusive leaders, you end up having by default a more inclusive and diverse leadership team. So one is having that inclusion in your organization. Secondly, we've done training in this matter, and 95% of our people have had to go through this, have gone through this training in the last year. And so we made it mandatory so that everyone could understand, what are some of these biases? How are people experiencing them? And then third, we are collaborating with our communities and our clients. And to me, that matters, because when you make an impact in the community, that's a way for us all to be able to get involved, not only within our own companies, but more broadly to make our communities a better place for our children. Right. And as a mom of young children, I pray that my children will have a better world to live in. And so I have examples of all of those things, but I know we're running out of time. But I would just say that A couple of quick examples of things that we're doing in the community. We're working with community partners, community education partners, and other corporations in our community to really increase opportunity for people that wouldn't have normally had jobs. And those opportunities help to increase the diversity in the workforce, and also are a sustainable way for others to be able to have livelihoods that, you know, will hopefully have a ripple effect.
I love it. Emily, anything else that you would advise those women, and I know you usually consult companies, but, and Tracy, you too, what can the women who are here today in this group do personally to advance in their own career, to gain those leadership skills through the lens of what we're talking about, and seize the opportunities?
Well, it may sound trite, but you know, in the training we've done, we've given a lot of thought to this, and what we've come up with is exercise your abs, both literally and figuratively. What does that mean? You know, really step up your awareness on a personal level. Pay attention to those occasions where you might have made a misstep due to your failure to look through some blind spots, some of these aha moments, assumptions that we make, and try to change the way you look at things. And then, you know, with respect to behavior, actively seek out opportunities for diversity, for inclusion, oppose your own traditional or stereotypical thinking, move toward instead of away from this issue, even if it does disrupt your comfort level. And then, you know, from a structure standpoint, really think about some concrete steps, whether it's mentorship or work assignment processes or hiring processes that you can implement into your practice.
I love that. I want to go to Tracy. It seems to me that this is really a huge opportunity right now, right here, to be more vulnerable and to be more outspoken and to give ourselves grace, you know, as well as each other. Tracy, you want to add anything to what Emily said? What everybody on this call can go do personally to help their own career and in the process be part of the solution?
100% agree with everything that you said, Emily. I encourage my women leaders at my company and my clients to be vocal, be self-reflective, and be vocal about that. So as you're personally going on the journey of overcoming your own biases and awareness of how you represent and how you make decisions, share that with other people and make that part of the conversations you're having. And it may be getting out of your comfort zone, but that's okay. Be vocal about it. And if you need to have a conversation with someone that's a little bit scary, you can say that too. That's part of the self-reflection and part of the awareness.
All right, I love that.
I have just one tangible thing to add. Take the chance to get to know one person that's different than you, that you didn't know before, on your level, and also that's at the leadership level. Back to those small steps.
All right. So if there are any questions, real quick, maybe just jump in with a super quick question or shoot it to us via the chat. You can unmute yourself. We'll look out for hands raised. I don't see anyone just yet. So I do want to go ahead and pop up on the screen, Lisa can, some of the solutions, tips and solutions, all of which were discussed today. And I see she's about to pull that up now. I don't see it up there, Lisa, but I know you're working on it. I have on my list. Do you guys see that? I don't see it yet, Lisa. I see
a little banner. I don't see the actual.
We see the banner, but we don't see the graphic, Lisa, just so you know. But number one on that list was expect and embrace mistakes. The key is to try. Chloe said, give ourselves grace. We don't have those tips right now, but number two, speak up when you see inequities. People are listening. Number three, step up and contribute, even if it means you're uncomfortable. We're still not seeing it. Number four, discuss diversity in high-level meetings, not just when the topic is DE&I, but to make it part of every business decision. And then number five, look at your company. And some of the things the experts talked about today, look at your company, see if leadership is investing in diversity. Does the person in your company who is in that DE&I role report to the CEO? Do they have that kind of authority? Are you recruiting differently? and casting a wider net? Are you measuring and reporting diversity? So those are some of the things. And I want to go back to the statistics, just a quick recap, and then ask our experts for one final pearl of wisdom if they want to share back to the data. 52% of those participating today said they're now more comfortable than before having these sensitive conversations. You can pop up the results, Lisa, if you happen to still have them. I don't know if you do. In terms of, has your comfort level changed? 52% are more comfortable, 18% less comfortable, and 30% no change at all. Yeah, so that shows us that statistic, I guess, 15%, I needed glasses. Yeah, 33% has not changed. Lisa, do you have a new poll question we can ask everybody to see if everybody's a little bit more comfortable now with this conversation? Are you more comfortable having this conversation about race and gender conversations now? Now that we've talked about, are you a little bit more comfortable having these sensitive conversations? Would love to hear from you. And Lisa will put that on the screen. And then I'd love to hear any final questions or thoughts from our speakers before we wrap it up. Lisa, do you have the results? You are on mute, I think.
For some reason, I'm not able to work anything from, I don't know if it was changing the host, but nothing's working.
Okay,
so
Annette, did you see the results to that?
Did you all see the
I saw the poll, but I didn't see.
Oh, you did see the poll. Okay.
Yes, I did.
I'm not seeing any results, so.
All right, we'll find them and share them with everybody in the recap. I want to go ahead and begin to wrap up. Chloe, do you have a few final words of wisdom?
I would just say that I'm really excited about the group that's come here today to have this conversation. And that's the step we need to take, is to just keep having these conversations in a group like this, in small groups. Find, a mentor or a sponsor that can help with this conversation or any conversation. I mean, as long as we continue to support each other as leaders, as women, we can be the change we want to see.
I love it. Emily, any final words?
Sure. Like Chloe, I have a young son. My son is 10 and he's about to finish up 5th grade. And I was talking with him on the ride to school today about this program. And, I was really encouraged to get his perception and understanding the importance of this issue. He said, yeah, everybody's different and it's great. We bring a lot to the table. This is a positive. And, there's a space here that we're in right now that we have a lot of power to change our response. And I think there's great opportunity in that. Terrific discussion, and I'm encouraged.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Emily and Chloe, for being part of this. I really appreciate you. Tracy, what about you?
I also talked to my teen and tween about this topic, and they don't see it as a topic of conversation of why is this needed? Why don't we all get along? Because that's how they've been taught, and they don't necessarily see the same differences or come with the assumptions. And what I've taught them is ask questions. If you see something different, recognize it, but ask a question, and that will kind of mitigate some of the assumptions that we make and the stories that we tell ourselves. Question yourself and ask questions to others.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much, Tracy. Thanks for being here, and our speakers for the time you spent thinking about this and your years of work to, have this sort of wisdom and the resources you shared with us, which we will share with all. I want to tell everybody a little bit about what's coming up next. We will have the recap. Lisa's going to put the link to the newsletter. If you're not receiving it, you should be. It's part of our Pink Power Alliance, no charge or anything like that. We will make sure to invite you all to receive the newsletter if you're not receiving it. Lisa, can you put that on screen? Okay, and this is what's coming up next in terms of the Pink Power Alliance Zoominars. The calendar, you can see we're on the 4th Thursday, the last Thursday of every month at noon EST. In June, we're going to talk about being your best advocate. We have some remarkable women leaders who have done that for themselves, and now they're going to share their success secrets. July 29th, well-being post-pandemic, huge issue, really urgently needed. August 26th, we're going to be talking about your executive presence, your Zoom presentation and other skills, which is also essential in this day and age of technology. And then we've got our big pink event, the signature annual fall empowerment event, the 17th annual event coming up on October 18th. Save the date. We'll be broadcasting it globally. We will be broadcasting it from Atlanta in Buckhead on the 18th of October. We've got some great speakers, including the Chief People Officer of Walmart, and more to come. And thank you all so much for being here. Thanks to the Pink Power Alliance members. If you feel this program is useful, just shoot me an email, or Lisa actually will put a link, I think, in the chat so that you'll know how to access it, to share it with others at your organization. We want you to be part of it. We want to invite you to be part of it. And we want to also invite you to stick around for the informal networking portion of the program, which is really, really valuable. This is not available to anybody else. We're going to turn the recording off now. So if you're joining us, tuning in and watching, we'll see you next month, and everybody else can stick around for a little bit of networking. Thank you all so much for being here and for all you're doing, for being part of this. Thank you.